folks, Troy with V-Twins to VH, back on the 240Z project. We got our sides all taken care of. Now we're going to work on this rear body. I got a new rear body panel which is here. We're going to cut this old one off and put the new one on. So let's get at it. Alright, so the first thing we got is we got our car. We got it supported on the frame rails rather than back here where we were before with the rotisserie. This is for two reasons. This is to make it so that we have full access to it. It's also to make it so that I am not using these areas to support the weight when I cut this panel off. I don't want to distort the integrity of the car. So now as I look at this, my replacement panel and my new panel, I got to figure out, how much of it am I going to use? I mean, some people would say use the whole thing. Generally, when we do these projects, we tend to section these things because the less of the original part of the car you disturb, the better off you are. That's why I got some lines cut out here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all this stuff out of the way so that I can see all my spot welds. Then I'm going to drill my spot welds. And then I'm going to work on popping this body panel off. I'm only going to pop off the bottom part of it. Then I'm going to take my new one and I'm going to decide how much of it I want to use. If I want to go up into these areas here and change all this, I can, but there's nothing wrong with it. And I see no real reason to get up into that. I'm thinking I'm going to section it right in this area here. It's nice and down low and, mostly will be hidden by the tail lights and the finish panel. So I'm going to get to work at some cutting and drilling. Okay, so I want to come back on and show you the progress. So I hacked off my bottom so I got, I can look and see what's going on. I took a magic marker and I put a dot every place there's a spot weld. Then what I did was wherever there was a spot weld, I drilled a 1/8 inch hole. And then I use my spot weld drill to remove the spot weld. And I'm going to show you right here how this is done. So the small part of the drill is going to be the pilot, and the large arbor is going to cut through the outside of the panel. So I'm going to do it and you can watch. Now see what happens is I got a center hole and then my arbor cuts the outer part of the panel, thus breaking the spot weld. I am going to do that on all of these welds so that I can remove this panel. Okay folks, so I've got this rear body panel off of here. Now, when it comes off, I know that I showed you how I drill these out, and then I use an air chisel to pop it off. This, my friends, is the air chisel, and if you've ever heard one of these, you'll know why. I did not have the camera on while I was using it. Extremely annoyingly noisy. So anyways, when you take these panels off, they come off in a million little pieces. It's all bent up and everything, so don't think that you're just going to drill this out and it's going to come off as one piece, because it's really not. It's tough. You miss a few spot welds and then it rips and things like that. Over here I got a little spot. I'm going to probably have to do a little repair. We'll know better once we get my piece of my rear body on. But the next thing that's going to happen is I'm going to get the grinder and I'm going to grind all of these edges, and then we're going to treat this inside here with some rust mort to kill all that rust in there, and then we can start thinking about fitting our new panel, getting it trimmed up and getting it fitted to the back of the car. So I prepped the areas where I'm going to be welding to. I hammered and dollied them. I got them all ground smooth. I've got this trimmed off, and I'm getting ready to put my rear body panel on, or at least fit it for the first time. I'm going to use the same technique on here as I did when I did the quarter panel. I'm going to make a lap piece to go right on this rear body panel, so I can butt right to here, weld that, and have a nice smooth face. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make my tang here and here, get that welded on, then I can trim my panel and we can start fitting it on the back of the car. Okay, so I made my tabs here and here, you know, drilled my holes, I punched my holes, made my tabs so that I can get my piece there. I put it up here and I cut it, and I'll show you what I got. I took my piece and I cut it like right behind the license plate. Now what this gave me is it split these two holes that you see here and here. So I was able to measure this and measure that, so that when I cut this and trimmed it and put it over onto my car, I can make sure I have that same distance. I'm gonna fit this up here now and I'll show you what it looks like. So now I got my piece fitted on, and this is how it's gonna butt up over here. All I gotta do is measure this distance on both sides, and I know that my tail lights are gonna fit properly and everything's where it's supposed to be. I also have these bolt holes down here, which will also give me a pretty good clue that I'm in the right place. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna make some marks on here so I can punch some holes. And I'm gonna make some marks on here so I can punch some holes. And then, you know, probably here and maybe over here, you know, these are gonna be my weld points. This is already set up to be a weld point there. And we're gonna get it ground and get it ready to be welded onto the car. I got my rear body panel all fitted. It's lapped here. It's lapped over the quarters like it's supposed to be. These areas that are drilled here all correspond with a bracket on the inside. I've got my templates that I made so I know I'm in the right place. I think it looks pretty good. I do have to tweak this end a little bit. Looks like this quarter got hit and this is in just a little bit. This side looks really good. I gotta work on my brackets on the back side to get it to fit onto this against the body panel here, nice and flush, but I'm really happy with the way it looks. I'll bring the small camera over and I'll give you a view. So here we are. If you look down here on this corner, it was hit here, and I don't know, I just see how it's tucked in right there. I just don't like the way that this is fitting. So I'm gonna mess with that a little bit. Where my bumper bolt's on, this is nice, I like that. Behind here, there's a big panel that comes across with a tab that comes down. That needs to be driven out from the underneath so it'll fit nice and flush here. I gotta work on that. This side looks really good. Same with this bracket, I gotta work it out a little bit. I really do like the way that it fits this quarter over here. I mean, maybe a little hammer and dolly action down here, but other than that, it looks really good. Got a little dinger right there and there. I'll take care of that, that'll be no biggie. Okay, my location is right according to my templates, here and here. So I've got a nice seam along here to make my weld. Got some screws in there holding it. I really like the way that this thing looks. So, I mean, I even got my trunk lid fitting on my lift gate, fitting quite well. A little bit of adjustment, a couple of stops or whatever, but I think it looks really good. So come Monday, we'll work on getting it really fitted on there nicely, and then we should be able to more than likely pop it off, put some weld-through primer on it, get this baby welded up, and then we'll be that much closer. Okay, so now I got my rear body panel fitted. I removed it. I ground all my weld points, made sure I had plenty of clearance for my welding, and I've sprayed my weld-through primer, my zinc weld from SEM, on the inside of that panel. And over here on the back of my car, all this rust that was in here has been eradicated with the chemical and neutralized, and now that has also been primed along with all these adjacent areas. And what this is going to do is when I put my pieces together, there is a corrosion protection between these two panels, but this primer allows me to weld. If I were to prime this with any other type of a primer, I wouldn't be able to get an electrical contact, I would not be able to weld, so therefore we have to use this special primer. So I've got that all set, this has been fitted. I'm gonna let my primer dry, Then I'm going to jig this back up on here with my screws, make sure I'm in the right spot, and then we're going to get to some welding. So I got my rear body panel all back in position with my weld-through primer on the backside. Got my welder all set up. I got this thing all screwed. I'm going to make a butt weld going across here and then spot welds everywhere else. And it's looking good, so I'm going to go ahead and start my welding. I'm going to weld from the middle out, and I am going to move around quite a bit so as not to cause any warpage on this panel. And once I'm all done welding, I'll come on and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay folks, so as you can see, we got our rear body panel on. It's welded. I wire brushed it. I took a D8 off all this factory primer. I like to do that because I don't know what these companies that manufacture these aftermarket parts use for primer. So I like to remove it all and then start fresh with steel with my own primer. So that's just my own particular thing. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to reset this back of the car onto the rotisserie. I'll move the back end of it on here, get my braces on, we'll get it back on the rotisserie. Then we can roll it over. I'm probably going to want to put a few tacks on the inside of this where my lap patch was so I can finish that off like I did on my quarters. Then we're going to work on patching a few spots on the floor. So let's get at it. Okay, so we're all set back up on our rotisserie, and now we're going to roll it and take a look on the inside and probably tack a few spots on the inside and get that finished off, and then we'll move on to some patches on the floor. Okay, so I got my car tipped up on its side. I just went along the back side of my body panel and I just tacked it on the inside just to give it a little bit of extra support in there. Now on the other side, where my seam is here and I have my lap panel on the back side, what I did was I came in here and I just placed some tacks here along the edges of that, just like I did with my patch down here, which is for the right quarter. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a little bit of Marglass. I'm going to smooth these areas over with some Marglass here and here, and then that way there it'll clean things up, kind of like what I got going on up in here. And I'll just run a DA over to something afterwards just to smooth it over. Nothing fancy, just enough to make it smooth, make it clean, and make for a very good seal for the weather. Okay, so we're back. I got my Marglass down in here. I got my Marglass on the inside of my panel. So for now, right now, I'm pretty good. I've got all of this Swiss cheese and the bottom of this spare tire weld that I got to deal with. I'll show you on the other side. So this is what we got. It's kind of perforated here. Somebody made a patch here, 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 and here. Now, the thing with this area is my client doesn't use it as a spare tire well. He uses it to put a fuel cell inside. So I don't need to have all of these little brackets that hold the jack and all this other happy crap. I just need to make this sealed. So what I'll probably do is just make a piece to cover this whole inside, weld it in, and we should be good. So that will be the next project. Thank you for tuning in. Please like and subscribe and follow the project. It's going to be an interesting thing, and you'll be amazed at what it looks like when it's done. So good luck on your project.